All right, so we're gonna go through using manual on the Canon T100. This also works on the Canon T7. The first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna flip our dial, and we're going to flip it to the M for manual. All right, and it's gonna say manual exposure. So there's a few things that I want you to notice. The first thing that I want you to notice is our screen, right? If our screen ever goes off, it's gonna look like this. If we wanna get our screen back so we can see it, we're just gonna hit the display button. It says DISP. We're gonna click it, and boom, it's right there. There's a few things that I wanna show you. The first thing is our exposure triangle. All right, our exposure triangle begins with our shutter speed. So our shutter is currently at 1/800. The next thing on our triangle is our f-stop or our aperture. Right now it's pretty big aperture at 9.0. And then finally, on our exposure triangle, we have our ISO, currently at 1600. All right, so see how it went off? We're just gonna hit display and it's gonna pop back up. All right. The first thing that I want to show you is that if you want to change your shutter speed, there's two ways that you could do it. The first way and the simpler way is you come right here and you go back and forth with this wheel, and it's actually going to change your shutter speed for you. All right. However, if you kind of want to get more of a dynamic range and you want to kind of go in and change these settings, you're going to hit the Q button, and then you're going to start moving around to get to where you want to go. Really important, if you change one part of your exposure triangle, you have to compensate and change for the other parts of your exposure triangle. So right now I have my shutter speed at 1/800. Let's say that I am trying to take pictures of baseball. All right, I'm gonna need a higher shutter speed because I want to capture that ball in motion. So if I click my Q, ideally, I'm going to want to go up to a shutter speed, maybe 1/2000. Doesn't need to be super high unless you're still getting that blur, right? So we're going to go over 1/2000. And the cool part about this type of camera is that as you slide over, it's actually going to remind you and tell you faster shutter speed frees moving objects. Slower shutter speeds create motion blur. So once we're done, we're gonna hit set, and now all of a sudden we have 1/2000. I'm gonna take off this. So we gotta compensate, and we have to go over, and we're gonna change our f-stop. All right, and we're gonna change our f-stop to be a little bit larger. So because I'm capturing more, all right, and remember it tells you, I'm gonna go to f22, that is super big, all right? So let's take like a practice picture and see what comes out to. Very dark. See how dark it is? It's very dark. So we have to compensate. And the best way that we're gonna compensate is with our ISO. Right now our ISO is at 1600. I highly recommend staying at lower ISOs, especially if you're not shooting in RAW. All right, none of us should be shooting in RAW, but we wanna stay at lower ISOs. All right, and the reason why we wanna stay at lower ISOs is because the higher the ISO is, the more grainy it's gonna be. All right, but for our purposes right now, let's say that we need a 6400 ISO because it's super dark. We're gonna take another practice picture. It kind of got a little bit lighter, but let's bring down our aperture and see what happens. Let's bring our aperture from f22. Let's bring it down to f8 and see what happens. And see how it got a little bit lighter. All right, so let's go back. So remember, right, if we're hitting Q, let's make our f-stop super small. The smallest it'll go is 4.5 on these cameras. Notice how it's pretty much perfect right now. Pretty much perfect. One other thing that I want to show you, all right, is kind of this like little house right here. If we hit our Q button and we go down, this is what we call white balance. The white balance kind of like tells the camera what kind of environment you're shooting in. So we always like to keep it on auto, ambience priority. However, if you're in a place like the main gym, all right, you can go to our white fluorescent light. But for our purposes, we're gonna go to ambience priority. Now watch what happens when I take a picture. All of a sudden, it's a little bit lighter and it matches what we're trying to do. So this is how you use the exposure triangle. Key things that you wanna remember, your display button right here, the Q to get on to this, and of course, the movement wheel.